Thanks very much indeed, Thea, and thank you to the Coalition for Global Prosperity and the Global Partnership for Education for putting on this event and inviting our speakers that we can all hear from. And great to see so many peers and members of Parliament and staffers and other NGOs here today to discuss these very important issues. And honestly, Julia, it doesn't matter how much jet lag you have, you still are going to make more sense. Doesn't matter how much sleep you lack than most other people. So thank you so much for the work that you do. And I think what you've done, and as well as what Akuja has done, has compellingly made the case absolutely fundamentally. And I'd very much warmly like to welcome Theo as a new member of the House of Commons, taking over from Jeremy Lefroy, who was brilliant on issues of international development, very committed, as well as an excellent member of the Joint Committee on Human Rights. So he's a great loss, but you're a great gain here with all your commitments that you bring. And I think this is something, and I see Emily Thornberry here, who's our Shadow Foreign Secretary and a member of our Shadow Cabinet, where we do want to work cross-party and make sure that we relentlessly support the good things that the government are doing, whoever is in government. So let's all work together to make as much progress as we possibly can. Because as has been said, this is not just about the individual right and potential of every girl. It's also about the economy. It's also about health, child health, adult health as well. It's about climate change, and it's about conflict. So the case is absolutely compelling. And I think, we should feel gratified, as Julia says, on the progress that has been made, and also recognise that that progress is quite recent in the great history of time. And before we just start thinking that we've always been in a state of grace about girls' education, I can remember, and I'm just about to be 70, but I can remember when in my youth the idea was, and this was often said, that education is wasted on a girl. And I don't know whether anybody else who's my generation can remember that being said. Education is wasted on a girl. But it was more than that. Education was not a very good thing for a girl. It was quite a subversive thing, because the most important aspiration for a girl was to get a good husband. I'm talking about this country here now. To get a good husband. And no man would want to have as his wife a woman who was, another phrase, too clever by half. Because she might make him look not so clever. And why would any man want a clever, intelligent, able, independent woman to be his wife? Because what he wanted was a subordinate. And therefore, even just in my generation, the attitudes that have underpinned a recognition of the importance of girls' education have been hard fought for. And they've not just been forthcoming like the rainfall, they've had to be fought for. Because actually, girls' education is a challenge to the patriarchy. It is a challenge to patriarchic societies and patriarchal cultures. And by the same token, girls' education is a liberation of girls and women, and therefore pushes back on the patriarchy. You only have to look at the issue in relation to the Chibok girls, look at Malala. There are people who will fight against girls' education. So armed with our absolute commitment to it, we obviously have to work very hard and against obstacles like child marriage, like outdated views about periods, all there, like child pregnancies, that get in the way of girls having their rights. So it is very hard, and there are many obstacles. And the question is how we unpick those obstacles. I think one of them is to recognise that we are not arguing here. I think it's rather understating it to say that we're arguing for girls to be equal. I think what we want is girls to be liberated from oppression by the patriarchy. We're not asking for a sort of neutrality. It's a struggle of male subjugation of girls. We've got to recognise it in that bigger picture. And the second question is, how is it made sustainable? And obviously, DFID has done absolutely remarkable work. And I'm so pleased to see Liz in that role as a woman working across FCO and education and DFID, because actually it's not been good enough when we've had, like on the Commission of Status of Women, for heaven's sake, male ministers from our government going and representing us. So Liz is very welcome for her own self, but also because she stops us being embarrassed by sending male ministers to conferences about women's equality. So, you know, I shall be backing her up every step of the way. We've got DFID, we've got NGOs, brilliant NGOs, we've got communities supporting, and we need to make it all sustainable. But I often, and I have so many constituents in my constituency of Camberwell and Peckham who come from Nigeria, who come from Sierra Leone, Ghana, East Africa. So in showing out of respect for them, I've often been to those countries and feel that when I go and meet a girl in a village in northern Nigeria, who is her best chance of being on her side, in addition to DFID, in addition to NGOs? It is actually the woman member of parliament in the state legislature who actually is there representing her and representing girls' aspiration, or the woman in the federal legislature. And I hope that through DFID, we can actually fund there to be, in every state and federal legislature, a coalition of elected representatives for girls' education, because they need to be a driving force within their own representative systems. So I think that those streams of funding that come via DFID to go into supporting women to be representatives of other women are a crucial part of it. They're not actually buying exercise books, they're not actually funding separate toilet blocks for girls, but they are really important in bedding that down. And I'd also say one final thing is that I hope that included in this important work will be the diaspora communities, because there is so much commitment and support for girls' education, for young women whose country of origin is Sudan or Nigeria or Ghana or in East Africa, who we need to harness and draw on their commitment, their support, their legitimacy as well in actually helping work in partnership with girls' education. So I'd also like to see DFID not only supporting women members of parliament at federal and state level, but I'd like to see them also funding the real inclusion of diaspora communities, so that as Britain, when we face out to the rest of the world, we face out as the multicultural global country we are. We are a global country. We're not just looking out to the globe, we are a global country. Let's actually do that. So thank you very much for your work, and you've got my 100% support.